So I thought I would do a video because, and I really appreciate Pete, and I don't think Pete would mind me saying this, that he had posted his code and I replied, and then we ended up having a meeting. He came into my office hour and it was really helpful. And I think definitely there are other people that would benefit from this short discussion about objects, functions, references, and globals and locals. So I just want to kind of give you a kind of a brief example of what I did with Pete, right? So if we have a function, right, equals, we'll learn arrow functions later, right? And then we do work in here, right? So then we call, of course, we call my function, right? And in this case, it's not going to do anything, right? But I want to talk about, right, if we pass something to it, right? So if I have an argument of 10, then I can take that in as a val, or I could take it in as something that represents what the value is, okay? Now, if I happen to, out on the global space, right, define a variable, let val equal 10, then inside of here, I referenced, I'll just do it. I'm not going to do it to the web page, but value, right? It's going to read the value that's in the global namespace, okay? Because at this point, first, I'm not referencing any value here. If I referenced value here, then I passed 11, which would print 11, okay? Which probably this is probably not code you want to write because this can get confusing. You're passing, right? And you're running a function, you're calling a function, you're passing an argument that becomes a parameter and that is locally scoped once it's in there. Okay. So that was one thing. And I think that was a really helpful discussion because his code was running. And yet when he called it, right, he wasn't. Now, by the way, if I just change that, what happens? Right? Then it prints 10. Because it's going to look in its local scope and say there's nothing there. So then I'll look outside of my scope and I'll find that value is 10. Okay, this won't mean anything at all. And then of course the whole, right, let result equal. This would only work because it does come back, right? But if you don't return something, right, that return is stored here. Okay, so the other thing that can get a little confusing here is the idea of my object and how when we write, in this case, we're writing, so this is my object. I would have value, comma, and then on that object, I would write a function that is still a function, but it is called a method. Just, and you know, the way we name things, the hope is that we don't cause, and when I say we, I mean the JavaScript community, right? So if I say my method, colon, now the way I write this is basically this, right? Okay, so I could, in a sense, just copy that into here. I'd only need that comma if I was going to add another value. Oh, I threw something else. Oh, I threw something else in there. Okay. Now, in this case, how do I reference or how do I call my method? Well, this is where you have to do the not dot notation. So my object dot my method. And then at that point, it's just like any other function call. Kind of, okay? Its scope is different though. But let's just keep this here. What's your guess on what would print? And really get, not just guess, think about it, right? So if I'm calling, I'm first referencing the object, and within the object is a key, but this key represents a function. So I can call it by its reference, its name, but that name is really a function, so I need to call it with the open and close parentheses to, because I could do that, but it would actually do nothing. It's not going to invoke anything. I do have to call it. Okay. And now I can talk about, right, if I want to pass something in. Now in this case, again, because that is setting out here, so let's get rid of that here. Right? Well, it's really this value, and that's actually the way you go to reference values that are inside of the object. Then we say this dot value, and then if we return it, what would we need to do here? Well, almost identical to what we did above, which is we need to have result new. Oh, by the way, okay, so when I return, right, I'm going to return 10, and that's going to be stored here. Which, by the way, just FYI, let's say I wanted to use the result from above. I could do that because I've declared it with the let, and so I can then reassign it to something new. Maybe that helps, right? But that's having this understanding too, right, of the idea, and just scroll up, to see what we're talking about, is understanding it's an object. Inside of the object is a key. Actually, all objects have key value pairs. It's a pair. The key value pair for a method is a function. And if I pass 10 in here, right, and I say V8, and I could abbreviate it, doesn't really matter. This doesn't matter. What matters is how I now reference that, because I'm passing 10. 10 becomes val, represented by the variable val. And if I wanted to console log val and also return val to do something with it later, this is how I would do it. But if no, this is not how I do it, because, actually, no, good question here. What would happen here? I left this right here. It would be that it would look and it would say, doesn't exist, so it would give undefined. So, should we prove that? Let's prove that. Let's see, because it'll print some other, and again, I'm not going to run it from the browser. I'm just going to quickly run it from here. Doesn't like, let's see, doesn't like line 3. Yeah, it doesn't like for the same reason. Okay, so we're not going to do anything here for the same reason. It's kind of the same reason. Undefined. When it logs it here, we're not doing anything inside this function. It's really here. We console log this val because, because this would only work, right, if I actually referenced a key value pair that existed. So my point is to thank Pete for coming and to give other people the benefit. If you want more of my feedback, the earlier you submit it, the better, because once I'm grading everyone's work together, it's hard to give as much detail. So the encouragement, and maybe Pete, if you want, you could say something about if it was helpful to you to have that conversation. Okay. All right. Talk to you later.